Every day, the world gets a little weirder and a lot more awesome. Cool Stuff Daily takes a look at everything from mining in space to the latest in the fight against cancer to how AI is, basically changing everything. It's all the cool stuff you didn't know you needed to know. Join us for Cool Stuff Daily as we take a quick look at science, tech, and the wait, what stories that make you sound way smarter at dinner. Subscribe to Cool Stuff Daily now, because the future's happening fast, and it's way too fun to miss.
You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
Hey, it's Sam Ben-Ruby, and this is The Wine List. The Wine List is a new, fast-paced podcast featuring the best-in-class wine guests. Each week, I'll ask our guests 5 questions about their current wine and food preferences. The same 5 questions I've asked everyone from day one on the Grape Nation. Get ready for the most diverse and interesting recommendations to try now. We'll also find out what's going on in our guests' world. This week, we talked to Emilien Boutillat, chief winemaker at Piper Heidsieck and Rare Champagne. Born in Champagne to a vine grower, Emilien traveled the world to master his craft with stops in Châteauneuf-du-Pape, Chile, South Africa, worked at Chateau Margaux, Peter Michael in the U.S., Comte, and Armand de Brignac, to name a few. He joined Piper Heidsieck in 2018, at that time the youngest cellar master at 31. Welcome to The Wine List, Emilien.
Thank you, Sam. Hi.
All right, so let's get right into the wine list.
Let's go then.
We'll screw around with everything else later. We're going to ask you the original 5 questions that we've asked everybody since day one, like I mentioned. But there'll be some twists and additions, and also an eye toward champagne. So, you're steeped in champagne, so wherever a champagne answer makes sense, or you could add a champagne answer, do that. So here's the first question. What are you drinking now? What's in your fridge at home? What's on the table? When you go out to a restaurant, what do you want to try? I know you're tasting and drinking champagne all the time. We'll get to that. But are you drinking non-champagne stuff at your leisure?
Yes, indeed. I'm in love with wine and champagne, so I love to drink different champagne, but also different wine. I noticed that I drink more white wine than red nowadays.
Not seasonally, just in general?
No, in general, I think. Okay. But I still love a glass of red wine. But recently I noticed that I enjoy more white than red. But in general, what I like to do is really to taste new winery I don't know, or new areas I don't know. So try to be surprised.
So let's look back last 3 months, 6 months, a year. What are some new wineries or wines that you've tasted? Can you remember, or even go further back, or something that has stuck with you?
Interesting. It's hard to go back in my memory like that. I tasted, I come from Champagne, as you know, and I come from an area of Meunier mainly. And I tasted some Meunier very recently, still Meunier, red Meunier from Germany. That was quite interesting and quite mind-blowing. I don't remember the name of the winery, but I like to discover this type of things which is quite unique and quite different.
So still Meunier probably has been made for years, but
yeah.
People are paying attention that it's there and it's a cool thing. Same thing with still Chard and Pinot Noir for champagne wines. Now, what about champagne? Do you drink your own champagnes? Do you like to taste?
It's obviously, I love to drink my own champagne, and also the champagne from my father, because my father is also a vine grower. But beside that, I like to taste, and both like work and also for me. I enjoy the diversity of champagne we have. It can be from houses, it can be from growers, and with always the same idea of discover maybe new things I don't know. So there's plenty of grower champagne located in specific small areas, located in one village, most of the time one terroir, to showcase the reality of one terroir, and that's something I would definitely love to to taste and enjoy.
So I mentioned in the intro your dad was a vine grower. You mentioned you like to drink his champagne. Did he always make champagne, or is he making champagne?
I mean, he was in the family the first one to make champagne, but in the family we grow grapes since 1765. So actually at least 1765, because we lost track before that from father to son. We always had vine grower in the family, but my father was really the first one to not only produce grape, but also make his own champagne.
Nice. All right, let's go to the second question. This is maybe the silliest or goofiest, but it's fun. And it's straight up, what is your favorite wine and food pairing?
I would speak...
Probably you don't eat it all the time.
No,
Not what you think is a good one, what you like.
I'm a French guy. I love cheese. So my best pairing would be like cheese and old vintage champagne, old champagne.
Why does that work?
It's a perfect match. I mean, first of all, like again, white wine or white sparkling wine, especially champagne, is a perfect match with cheeses. And when you have like strong old cheese, like an old Comté, like 36, 48 months, with a vintage champagne from, I don't know, the 80s or 40 years old champagne.
So you go old with old.
Match.
Older age Comté
yes, kind of,
with an older age.
Yeah. But you can do also younger champagne with a light goat cheese, for example. But I like strong cheese.
The idea of cheese and champagne is great. So I was going to ask you, what's the classic champagne and food pairing? Is it cheese and champagne?
I mean,
what else?
The classic champagne pairing will be also with seafood. Obviously, you can make amazing pairing. Oyster with a great blanc de blanc, for example, it's a perfect match. But indeed, my pick will be cheeses and old champagne. Definitely.
I like that. All right. Third question, and this is because, you're embedded in a region, plus you travel. We just talked offline how much you're running around. So the question is, tell me some of your favorite wine restaurants and or bars. You could tell me places in Champagne. You could tell me in your travels. Maybe you just walked into a place in the last week that really caught your eye, or maybe you have favorites that you come to. I'm not asking for 1, 2, 3. I'm asking for some favorites.
I mean, depends what you're looking for, but in Champagne, we have the chance to have one of the best champagne lists at the wine bar. The name of the bar is very easy, the wine bar.
People have mentioned that.
In Champagne, in Reims, which is an amazing place with an amazing wine list and champagne list especially. And then like here in New York, we went this week to Temple Bar, which is a very traditional, very casual and very rooted place that I like. I love Cocolac as well. Amazing place here. I mean, and in Champagne, we have the chance today to have amazing gastronomic restaurants. Yeah. So, I mean, the brand new one I would say is Arbane with the chef Philippe Mille. Arbane, Arbane. Which is
that's new.
Yeah, that's new. That's the chef is the former chef.
That's why I ask these questions. People go, I'm traveling to France and maybe Paris and Champagne. What is that place?
Yeah. So that's that place is the chef is Philippe Mille. He used to be the chef at L'Écrière, a 2-star Michelin restaurant. So he just got the 1-star Michelin for his new restaurant. But that's definitely an amazing place to visit.
All right, you may have mentioned it in the answer, but who in your mind has the best champagne list?
I mean, in Champagne, that's definitely the wine bar, obviously. But even though you have amazing wine lists in most of the most iconic restaurants in Champagne, but I will pick the wine bar for the wine list.
Is it Paris or not necessarily?
This one has
the great. No, I'm just asking, who else has like a really great champagne list?
In Paris, you can find some, but here also in New York, I think. But I mean, in Champagne, the wine bar has access to unique vintages, unique thing that
the wine bar has come up a few times, so it's obviously
that's actually mind blowing.
All right, I mentioned to you we post these answers on social media so people can see them. All right, fourth question. The original question was, what is your favorite all-time wine? Trying to push you towards what's the most expensive and rare wine you ever had. I kind of realized that wasn't the question I was going for. The real question is, what's the wine to this day that has had the biggest impact on how you think about wine? Did it transcend you from one thing to another? stylistically?
I think there is the two in Champagne, and it's funny to say that today because I'm actually the chef de cave for Rare. But before to join Piper Attic or Rare Champagne, I had the chance to enjoy a glass of Rare Champagne Vintage 2002, and again that was before I joined, and that was my best memory of Champagne, the biggest emotion, definitely.
Did you know you were joining when you were drinking it? So straight up, it just caught you.
Yeah.
So to this day, you think about it, which is really what the question is about.
Yeah, but that was really mind-blowing, and today I'm very proud to be able to be the chief winemaker for Rare and Piper. But at that time, no, I had no idea I will end up to that position. I was a young winemaker, and I was actually not really in Champagne. I just came back to Champagne to spend a few days with my family, and my father opened that bottle that I didn't know. First time for me to test it, and it was really an emotion. Close to perfection, a balance which is very, very unique. So that was really the best memory.
And 02 was
an amazing
vintage year
in Champagne, and that's quite an iconic vintage for us at Rare. Anytime we produce a vintage for Rare, we have somehow 02 in mind.
So I was going to ask, I asked you this question thinking maybe it would be a wine, but silly me. And the follow-up was, what's the champagne is there a wine that, really opened your eyes, non-champagne?
Yeah, definitely. So I had the chance also to work at Chateau Margaux. That was back in 2009. And over there, I had the chance to taste amazing, iconic wine, including some vintage of Chateau Margaux. And I had a chance to taste some vintage from the 60s, but the
1961?
Yeah.
Did you have?
No, not this one. This is your best memory, maybe.
Yes.
But the 1985 was a mind-blowing memory as well.
Listen.
And it's not only the wine. I think it's also the people you enjoy the wine with. It was an amazing moment with all the team just after the harvest at Chateau Margaux. So great memory.
I think that's an example of a winery that even in a okay vintage is still going to make very good wine. And probably as it ages, it becomes even better and more interesting.
Indeed.
All right, here's the fifth and last question. You're doing very well so far, okay?
Thank you.
The last question, and this is going to be the toughest one for you, but I want you to dig. And this is a selfish question. And I'll tell you why after you answer it. So I want you to recommend to me the best wine. And then, like I said, this is the champagne edition. We'll move. But recommend to me the best wine for $15, $20, $25 American. Ooh. Okay, that's you have to dig. So the idea is this guy sounds like he knows what he's doing. He just told me for around $22. And I'll tip you off. You can't deny that like a Pepier Muscadet probably is under 25 and it's a well-made wine. So there's a region, Muscadet, there's a maker, Pepier, and there's a price point that works. That's what I'm looking for.
I need to buy the bottle here in New York or in the US, or I can buy the bottle in France?
Get me close to that price point anywhere.
Because, definitely in France, you can find plenty of amazing wine under $25. The thing is, here in the US, it's way more expensive.
But does that wind up being from the same regions? Like it's always the Loire or Jura wines? Or where are those value wines?
It depends on your taste, but you can find amazing value wine in Loire Valley indeed, but also in Languedoc, also in Bordeaux. Today, Bordeaux is quite suffering, but you have amazing producers that make amazing Bordeaux, like in Côte de Bourg, all that area. Burgundy is more challenging, definitely. Beaujolais is coming back as well. And I
used to be very reasonable. It's climbed up. It's climbing. But there's still village, right?
Yes. You still find some good villages on good price. So in France, you can definitely find it. And outside of France, I think here in the US, I think that Chilean wine are still good value for money. So some are expensive, definitely, but you can find, I think, good value wine from Chile, definitely, in the US.
You nailed that answer. Everything was right. Languedoc, Loire.
Yeah.
There is some great value. Bordeaux. Chile is making really quality in the Maule region and other places. Now, let's move it into champagne and sparkling. Where do you think the best value is in champagne and or sparkling wine?
So two questions.
And, at any time you could mention your own products. It's not,
But I mean, at that price point, obviously, Piper is slightly over that price point.
Yeah, well, most champagne.
But in Champagne, again, you have, when you live in Champagne, everybody knows a grower Champagne that actually nobody knows, with a price point which is not $15, definitely not, but close to $25. And you have plenty of them. So my father is one of them, but you get plenty of small growers, but you need to be in Champagne. The growers you
But
find
the pricing,
the pricing
is
remains,
average bottle is
like,
how much?
My father is around 20 euros. So,
Oh my God.
So, but here it's
Look what we're missing.
But we don't have any tariffs. You go directly to the to the property, and you can get directly the bottle from the producer directly at the winery. So obviously that's something which is very unique in Champagne.
Certainly through this podcast and certainly through the years, grower champagne is the awareness has been raised in all of that. I think it's nice of you to point out that we know there's a lot of growers because they go from anywhere to small to large, and that they're making terrific wines and they're very reasonable.
Yeah, and I like to compare actually Champagne is so unique from that diversity we have, and I like to compare the grower Champagne as a solist. It plays perfectly one instrument because it's really located to one specific terroir. Right. While the houses like us, like Piper, we are more like the orchestra because we have access to all the champagne from all the terroir from Champagne, obviously. And by the art of blending, we will compose somehow a style that we will replicate year after year. So that idea of solist and orchestra, both can be amazing, definitely. That's the beauty of Champagne.
That's a fairly eloquent way to put it.
Yeah.
What about if I had to tie you up and tell you can't drink champagne anymore, but you could drink bubbly? Where do you go for what you think is the best made bubbles anywhere in the world?
I had some very good tasting in different areas. I think we make sparkling in different areas. In Italy, like Alta Longa or Trento Doc, you can find quite amazing sparkling wine. I was amazed by the quality of some Method Cup Classic in South Africa as well, because the climate is really warm. So we all know that we need freshness also to make amazing sparkling wine. And I was quite amazed when I was there to taste some quite mind-blowing Method Cup Classic. Very different than Champagne, obviously, but really connected to that terroir of Stellenbosch or Franschhoek. So very interesting.
What kind of grapes are they using?
Oh, it depends, but mainly Pinot Noir or Chardonnay.
They are using some Pinot.
Yeah.
Okay.
And England start to produce some interesting sparkling wine.
Great sparkling wine has really... You could tell when things are happening when there's an English sparkling wine only tasting in New York. They made it, because nobody gives a crap unless, there's some interest. And, for years there's been interest. Great job on that. Like I said, we're going to post that. Thank you for those interesting areas. Before we transition into what you're doing and what you're up to, you brought some champagnes, which I thank you for. We have two in front of us. What's the first thing we're trying? Tell me a little about this.
So the first thing we're trying is Piper Heidsieck Essentiel Extra Brut. So that's a more gastronomic expression of Piper. We test the Extra Brut today, but we also have Essentiel Blanc de Noir. So that's even more than just one champagne. It's a collection of wine and champagne dedicated for the gastronomy, the on-premise, the restaurant, the fine wine bar, and also the independent retail store. But the idea is really to have a longer aging champagne. So the one we are testing now is on the base 2016. So quite an amazing aging. Because you get that long aging, you need less sugar, so it's also in the Extra Brut world. And the idea is to highlight more minerality, saltiness, more complexity as well on the nose.
The salinity is there.
Yeah, definitely. So the
in a nice way. It works really well.
So the style of Piper is mainly linked with the Pinot Noir. So here you get a majority of Pinot Noir, but the style of Piper is also about highlighting that verticality and freshness. And here with Essentiel, through the minerality and the saltiness, that's definitely calling for food.
Where does this, I was going to ask you that, but let me ask that second. Where does the saltiness come from? Because, I've had a lot of champagne people on. The word salty is not a common thread in champagne.
Yeah.
Where does the saltiness in this
there is no great wine or great champagne without a great terroir. And all of that style is for me coming directly from the terroir and the grape itself. On the winemaking side, I would say almost that the less I do, the better I am. So that's really
I love hearing that. I love
respecting the fruits and showcasing that uniqueness of the fruit. So we pick in that blend, you get more than 50 different villages. So then the art of blending, of course, is important. But we pick the wine and the terroir that are really in line with that high minerality. So it's coming from the ground, the shulkiness we have underground, the shulk, we have underground, that is really expressed even more through the longer aging of that essentiel cuvée and the lower dosage as well.
Now, you said you make this for restaurants and on premise and all that, and you were alluding to it. So is it intentionally a food wine? I mean, it's as much as any champagne you're making, you think of this complementing food.
Yeah, we also have Cuvée Brut. This is the bottle you might see the most everywhere in the US and in the world. And the rosé that are probably more for the aperitif. It's a style of piper which is more on the vibrancy of the fruit, complex without being too complicated. Here, the essentiel is more for the wine and champagne lovers. It can definitely work on its own as an aperitif, as we enjoy today. But it's also definitely calling for some food. And we also put on the label and back label all the data, all the information, the blend itself, the percentage of reserve, date of bottling, date of disgorgement. As we know, we will find this product where you have a sommelier, or we will have consumers that love to know more details about that. So the transparency is also key.
So take me through the motions on this. This is a typical in a good way color. It's a straw yellow, very fine bubbles. Tell me what you get on the nose.
On the essentiel?
The first one.
Yeah. On the nose, I get clearly the touch of fruit, but maybe yellow fruit, some plum, some peach, ripe peach, but then you get clearly the toastiness. That's part of the signature.
I got the toastiness first, then I worked towards the fruit, but the toastiness came to me.
That's definitely part of our style. We look for that balance between the fruits and the toastiness, and that's coming also from the aging. So that's the signature of great champagne, definitely. And on the palate, I get at first that silkiness, that touch, which is very creamy, very, very seductive. And then the finish, as we said, is really on the nice minerality, nice saltiness. Also nice bitterness. The grapefruit bitterness is coming to extend the freshness.
It's very well integrated. It's nice. All right, let's talk a little more, and then we'll taste the second wine in a little bit. So you're a native of Champagne. In the intro, I talked about how you traveled the world and made a lot of stops, which was very interesting. In all those stops, I'm always curious, what are some of the more important things that you learned or you took with you that you really, can cite now that, I'm using this from Chateauneuf du Pape, or I learned this at whatever. Are there things?
Yeah, each single experience was very, very unique and very important actually in my career. But I had somehow two types of winery I work with. So obviously, Chateau Margaux or Peter Michael Winery, this type of place is where I learned the attention for each single details.
Incredible, both of them, right?
Incredible, tailor-made wine with a big, big focus on, again, every single details from the vineyards to the winery. At Peter Michael, I worked also with Nick Morley, who was the winemaker at that time, and he had also a diploma of nose in perfume. So I learned a lot with him also regarding the tasting and the aromatics and all of that part of my job. And on the other hand, I work in bigger wineries such as Mudhouse in New Zealand, or even Bumalens in Chile. That was a slightly smaller but quite big company, big winery. And I learned over there how to be efficient and produce good quality wine on a bigger scale. So both were actually very interesting, because if you look closely, Champagne is the, I think, only place in the world when you work in such a historical house like Paparazzi, where we need to produce tailor-made, very high-end wine and champagne in quite a big scale. So having these two experiences, these two knowledge, and being able to bring that back to Champagne was quite, I think, important. And also Champagne is very established in tradition. So going abroad, open your mind and try to bring back that to Champagne and find freedom into the rules that are quite strict in Champagne was also something very important for me.
Those are really good examples and different aspects of, making wine or growing and all that. did one region or one wine really stick with you?
Stick or
I mean, you said Peter Michael, which I think
yeah.
was important. They make incredible Chardonnays and Pinots, and Chateau Margaux, legendary.
Yeah,
So those obviously stuck with you. Anything else?
obviously, but I mean, also in New Zealand, beside where I worked, I had a chance to travel the country and test wine also from Central Otago and different wineries. I mean, I had amazing memories as well in Central Otago with some Pinot Noir that were quite amazing. Felton Road, to name
Interesting.
one. So yeah.
I don't think I can't get out of this room without bringing this up to you and having you respond to it. You had an interesting stop in your career along the way with the Cartier family and Armand de Brignac champagne. Now, I should have done more. Isn't that the Jay-Z champagne?
When I joined the Cathy family, it was not.
It wasn't. It came later?
Yeah, so I was inside. I saw the success story of that brand from the inside. And Jay-Z came during the way when I was there. And yes, indeed, this is he's associated to the brand.
Let's you and I totally hypothesize and guess. Why would he pick that champagne house?
It was he drank Armand de Brignac before to be involved, and so he loved the wine.
It was a thing for him.
Yeah.
However he got to it.
Yeah, it was his drinks, his go-to champagne, and finally decided to invest in the company. But first of all, he was a drinker and consumer of that champagne.
That I kind of knew that. I just it would have been fun if your paths crossed, but whatever. All right. So I think one of the great things that you'll agree with me is that champagne has really grown in popularity. I mean, people know what champagne is, but it used to be somewhat of a celebratory thing. You know, it sucked that people would only pull it out for a birthday or New Year's Eve. We know it pairs with food, and almost every other thing you do is an occasion. So it's in a good place right now. When we talk about Piper, and I'm not bringing this up to be uncomfortable, I think you're tasked with this. This is a company that had a terrific reputation. Not saying they don't now, but you know, the Marilyn Monroe stuff, the cool stuff, tables on the Oscars and all that. I noticed, and you read about it, that maybe through the years, you know, the champagne house lost a little sway or, you know, a knock to its reputation. Don't be defensive, but do you agree with that a little?
But the story and the love story with the US is quite long. I mean, Piper was the number one brand before Prohibition. During Prohibition, we can talk about that now because we have, it's 100 years old. But during the Prohibition era, we found a way to satisfy our consumer here in New York or in the US by shipping the wine to Saint-Pierre-et-Miquelon, a French island next to the coast. Then it went to a speedboat in the international sea to reach the speakeasy here in New York. We also developed like chewing tobacco, tasted Piperitic for people to remember so we have been bold all the way along, and we were also number one right after the Prohibition, obviously. That was 100 years ago. Today, we are still the number 4 brand in the US, so that's still very strong if you look to our competitors that are big players. So this is our history. We are still in the mind of all US consumer. We are still very strong. We have the history of Marilyn as well. So again, the love story is deep. And since 2011, since the new ownership, because the story of Piper is also changing ownership, we have Christopher Desco, who is the owner. It's a family business today. And we have that family spirit, that team spirit. So I think Piper is still there, very on top of the mind of most of the consumers in the US. But we also are repositioning Piper to a champagne to celebrate, obviously, but also a wine from champagne. And that's why we have, for example, the Essential collection that was born more recently. So we have that deep and long history and love story again with the US. Still established and still in mind of everyone. And we are also repositioning Piper into something even more premium than what it used to be. So
it's not really stylistic change.
I mean, we always
where you think you need to fix things, you'll do that, but it's not like we have to change this.
I mean, we did already quite an amazing job over the past few years since Christopher joined. You can listen to the reality of New York in the back.
Yeah, which is great.
And so, yeah, we did a lot. For example, over the past few years, I increased the percentage of reserve wine in our blends. We implement more no malolactic wine in the blend as well to preserve the freshness and kind of face and adjust to climate change and the ripeness of the grapes.
I want to talk.
So we always keep asking our chef what we can improve, but the result is there. If you look to the scoring, Piper Attic is the most awarded champagne house from the new century here in the US, but also all the concours and blind tasting. We love blind tasting. I do work with blind tasting on my own, and we submit all our champagne to blind tasting contests in the world, and the result is here. So it's not thanks to me, it's thanks to really the teamwork for years now. So the quality is there.
You feel good about everything.
Of course.
So I didn't think you would say otherwise, but has it been a marketing or it's not the product? Did they stop marketing it the way they used to, or?
Well, I don't think it's a stop or it's a change. It's an evolution like any other brand. And as I said, Essentiel is coming also to reaffirm the wine excellence. So no, I don't see that.
I don't feel that either. I just, sometimes people are so in your face and then they fall off the map. Let's talk about rare champagne for a minute. It's truly a highly regarded luxury champagne. Tell me briefly a little about how Rare came about. I know it was launched in 2019 as a standalone, but it pre-existed that date. And I'm answering the question I asked you that you don't make it every year. But tell me a little about, what we should know about Rare.
Yeah, so Rare used to be the prestige cuvée of Piper Attic, basically. So the inspiration, the idea of Rare was born for us in 1785 when the founder, Mr. Attic, went to the Château de Versailles to meet with the Queen Marie Antoinette. And at that time, he wanted to create a cuvée worthy of a queen. That was his idea. So he wrote that in his diary. So that's for us the inspiration of Rare. Now, Rare was born really in 1985. In order to celebrate that 200 years anniversary, we went to Versailles again to make a big party with hundreds of guests and to reveal the very first vintage of Rare. That was 1976. So inspired kind of in 1785, created in 1976 and launched and revealed to the world in 1985. So far, we only produced 14 vintages, and for many years, it was a prestige cuvée of Piper. And indeed, in 18, actually, we launched Rare as a standalone brand because, it was a unique product, a unique history, a unique bottle, and the wine also itself. I said that Piper is mainly linked with Pinot Noir and it's mainly multi-vintage champagne, while Rare is mainly Chardonnay
Chard-driven, right?
and 70%, and only vintages produced. So the winemaking is somehow very different. So it was obvious for us to launch Rare as a standalone brand. And actually it's a success because Rare now is flying with his own wheels. And in the same time, as to refer to what you said before, Piper also shine more through his vintage that we have also on the table and also the Essentiel collection. That actually, it's an amazing move because both brands are shining on their own. So actually, I think the perception of Piper today is also higher thanks to that.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. The separation is good too. Well, it's Chard driven. Is the other 30% or so? Is it only Pinot Noir, or you use some Meunier?
Yeah, the blend is quite consistent through the vintages we ever produced. So 70% Chardonnay, 30% Pinot. No Meunier so far in the blend, but we don't close any door. Maybe one day. But the link between each single vintage of Rare, it's the style of Rare, which is connected with the terroir again. So the Chardonnay is mainly coming from Montagne de Reims. That's really what makes the signature of Rare and the style of Rare so unique.
I didn't mention we're in New York. We're downtown on Worcester Street at your PR agency. But you're also in town for La Fête du Champagne. You're doing a Rare dinner, a retrospective. How many different wines?
Almost all the vintages.
Well, you don't make that many.
Almost, not all of them. But
so that'll be fun. It's kind of La Fête week in New York, and one of the events is Emilien is hosting that dinner, and then there's the grand tasting at the weekend. All right, I want to shift to something that we mentioned a couple of times, but I want to get into it more. I want to talk to you about your sustainability efforts.
Yeah.
And I want to get more away from, I know you're lowering your energy footprint. I want to know about sustainability in the vineyards and in the cellar. And early on this interview, unsolicited, you say, I try to do nothing in the cellar, which is sort of people who think of sustainability, think of less intervention.
Definitely.
But tell me about, Champagne's not an easy place to grow grapes, climate-wise, right? We'll get into that separately, but tell me some of the things you're doing.
So first, we are more and more impacted by the climate change, definitely. So we face more and more extreme. We face more and more spring frost, early budding, so spring frost, hail. Some vintage are full of water, actually, huge amount of water. Some other are impacted by big heat waves or drought. So we face more and more extreme.
More highs and lows than ever?
Yes.
It used to be a little this, a little that. Now it's like this, right?
That's quite erratic. And also we face we harvest today probably like 4 weeks earlier than 30 years ago. So we harvest earlier and earlier, and the ripeness is higher and higher. So that's obvious. So we need to do two things for me. First, to adapt, because that's the new reality and that won't change like that. So we need to adapt to that. That's why we today do not use more herbicide and believe in sustainable farming to push the roots to go deeper underground and find the freshness and preserve also the acidity of the wine. The date of harvest is definitely key. Even I say I don't do a lot in the winery. One thing is important is the malolactic fermentation that we do block more and more. The dosage also is going lower and lower. So we need to adapt.
Is it going lower and lower because of all the changes or stylistic change?
No, because the idea is to keep the style consistent, and because we have a riper grapes,
you don't need
the balance of the wine is more on the roundness, less acidity, so you need less sugar to balance it. So we need to adapt, but we need also to change, because the idea for me is also to preserve that terroir for the next generation of grower, winemaker, and consumer, because we want you guys here in the US to be able to still enjoy an amazing glass of Piperazzi champagne with the same style you always knew. So we need to preserve that terroir. So that's why we need to reduce our footprint. So in the vineyard, I can talk for hours on what we do. Sustainable farming, obviously. What does it mean? It means reduce the entrance. So, as I said, no more herbicide for us, any more pesticide. When the year is quite dry and sunny, we are definitely on the organic side. But we do also have some rain, some vintages, so we need to face that as well. But we reduce drastically the use of chemicals.
When that time comes, can you look towards organics? Can you look at treatments that are not, hardcore poisonous herbicides?
No, but we don't use any more CMR product. I don't know. So it's a French word, but it's the most dangerous one. They are banished completely. So the ones that are dangerous both for the environment and also the people applying the products. But today in Champagne, as I said, some vintage are full of water. Like in 2021, we had 1 month every single day, plenty of rain. So if you're organic, you have 0 grapes at the end of the day. So if you are fully organic every single year, you have to face no harvest every maybe 5 years, 4 years, I don't know. So is it that sustainable? I'm not sure, because you need to be sustainable economically as well. So we believe in being quite sustainable on each step of the process, being organic when we need to, when we can, and also being quite look to reality on the face as well. But it's not only about the treatment, it's also about the biodiversity. We planted more than 1,000 trees and hedges around the vineyard to bring back biodiversity around the vineyard. We use cover crops during winter time. So the idea is to think the vineyard more as a system and not anymore as a monoculture. Phytotherapy, obviously, we use also phytotherapy, we use plants to treat and preserve the vineyard as well. So it's really thinking differently in the vineyard, and that's, again, only for the vineyard. Then we have the water, the energy consumption, the carbon footprint. We are, at Piper, the first champagne house to got the B Corp certification. That was 3 years ago. And we just renewed that actually a few weeks ago, improving the score. So B Corp is the most demanding CSR certification, born here in the US, but spread worldwide today. And that sustainability approach covers for us every aspect of the business. Obviously, the vineyard, but also every aspect of the business. The glassware, the bottle we have at Piper is the lightest on the market so far. We try to work on an even lighter bottle for the future. They are produced less than 40 kilometers away from the winery. The shipping to the US is also something important. So, every single step of the process is taken into big consideration when it's time to discuss sustainability.
That's all great stuff. let's try the second
Yeah.
champagne. This is a vintage champagne from the year 2018. Tell me about it.
Brand new vintage for us. It's a preview for you. It's coming in the US before the end of the year. So
This is like a sneak peek.
Sneak peek for you.
Okay.
Lucky you.
This is very different than the other one.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, it has some bottle age. You
Yeah.
got to give it that, but profile and style is different. Tell me about this.
So that's the fun thing is that it's also my very first vintage at Piper. So that's the one before
That's
we
right.
tested. It was also linked with the previous winemaking. So 18 is quite an amazing vintage in Champagne. Quite easy, I would say, for the grower. It's not every year like that, so let's enjoy that.
So you got lucky your first year.
Yes, indeed. So
Indeed.
it was it was
Indeed.
sunny, quite dry. Rain when you need it. So perfect again season. Quite a fair amount of fruit. So good yield. So it's not every year in Champagne that you get both the quantity and the quality. But because the sun was there and the ripeness was possible, we reached both quantity and quality. And I think it's a vintage which is very fruit driven.
See, I don't, not that it's a trait that you should get every time, but the toastiness on the essential, there is, minimal toastiness on the nose here.
Because it's still a baby. It's
Baby,
a baby wine.
but it has some bottle age though.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
still a baby.
Yeah. What is amazing is the toastiness will come with time. So you get that touch of toastiness, but here in 18 is a type of vintage we might also see more and more in the future regarding the climate change. So you get that crunchy, vibrant fruit with some black cherry.
Yes.
You get the citrus, but you get also like the flower side. So you get that nice diversity, but remains very elegant. And on the palate,
It is
that
elegant. The bubbles are elegant.
the vibrancy is there. It makes you salivate. So you get really that refreshing, pure style. So it's 18 base, 18 vintage actually. So already quite 6 years of aging. But as we said, it's still a baby. So it's amazing today. It's a sneak preview for you as well. So it will be even better in 1 year. And if you want to get the toastiness, you need to be patient and age it a bit more on your side.
I think it could handle that. It is beautiful. And it will be in the market
Before the end of the year here in the US.
for the holidays.
Yeah, I think
that's
so.
important.
Yeah.
All right, we got to wrap things up. I have a few more things I want to ask you. I'm more curious about this. When you started at Piper, you were made the chief winemaker, right?
Yeah.
You were what, 31? Did
Yeah.
anyone give you crap for being so young?
No.
Like, who's this guy? What does he know? When you went out to the wine bar in Champagne to have a drink, did people look at you and say, what is this guy? How was it? Did you notice anything?
Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky. Piper at Sig is also a bold house from that perspective. Trusting a young guy of 31 years old is a chance for me, and I have a lot of respect for that. Not every single house can trust somebody like me with a 31 years old profile. But I think it was a good meeting between the brand spirits, my spirit, the open-minded approach of Piper at Sig. Piper at Sig exports most of its champagne for almost ever. So that having that
The
open,
U.S. being the number one market?
I mean, it used to be. Now today, Australia is number one. I
Really?
think US is number two, close
Wow.
to with UK. But to have that really that openness to the world was something that was a good match between us, and also the sustainable approach and the sustainable spirit I had and the company had before was the perfect match between, I mean, the brand and me. And also, you need to remember that it's not only me, and I believe in the team spirit. So the link between the different generation of winemakers and chief winemaker are really the team. So I have some members of the team. Miriam, for example, she's part of the team. She's a winemaker, and she's part of the team for more than 38 years. So we have that strong legacy, and that's really the strength, I think, of a brand like Piper at Sig, to rely on a team. We test together, we decide together.
I
And
like
that's
people
important.
who mention that it's a team. I like the we more than the I,
Yeah.
because in the end, it is everyone that is helping you. What can we expect in the future? Do you pray every night that it'll be a good vintage and you could do rare every year? I mean, what do you
No,
expect?
I do not pray.
Okay.
But
Wish?
We wish. I mean, we take what the nature gives us. That's always been the case.
No choice.
And no choice anyway. So we need to live with that. And as you mentioned before, you said that maybe Champagne is an hard place to grow grapes. Actually, with global warming, I'm not saying that global warming is a good thing, but today we reach a certain maturity that we were not able to reach before. We still preserve the freshness. We are more in the northern part of Europe, northern part of France. So actually, so far, I would say that we have almost more good impacts on the maturity of the grapes, even though we have like extreme, as I said before. But I mean, we might see more vintage than in the past, I think.
So it's created a challenge, but it's had
Opportunities
an
as well.
okay
Yeah.
impact and opportunities.
Yeah. It's always a good combination of both.
Yeah, I mean,
So far, the question mark is what about the future again? So
yeah, and you said, what did you say? You're harvesting 4 weeks earlier than what, 40 years ago, 30?
Yeah.
I wonder if that's accelerated and every 10 years is going to be like the last 40. I don't know where things are going.
Well, at some point, we need the vines to let the fruit grow. So it will be hard to harvest even earlier than that. But this year, we started the 20th of August.
Wow.
We started the harvest the 20th of August. So,
crazy.
And again, 20th of August, the grapes were riper than when we harvested in October 30 years ago. So it's earlier and riper. So it's very unique. But so far, for example, we do not face lack of water. We have the chalk underground. We still have the water. Some other areas in France or even here in California face drought, like drastic drought. So far, we are lucky from that perspective. So for all that reason, I think some other region will suffer first. And we are lucky to be north of Europe from that perspective.
Well, I hope it continues that way. All right, I have to do a quick wrap up. Before we leave, I want to get some info from you about the champagnes. So thanks for listening. If you'd like to contact the wine list, we're at sam@thegrapenation.com. That's sam@thegrapenation.com. The wine list is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you get your pods. If you like the podcast, subscribe and leave a review. You can follow us, and I mentioned that we'll put Emilien's wine list answers on our social media, so you could find that on Instagram at @SBenRuby, on X @BenRuby, on Facebook we're at The Grape Nation. As I mentioned, I'll post Emilien's wine list picks on our social media site. So Emilien, if we want to find out more about you, Piper, and Rare on social media, what do we do? Instagram?
Instagram, you will find us on Instagram. I mean, my account is there, but
what about your
I'm
personal
not the most
account?
efficient Instagram boy.
You're not that active?
But the Piper Heidsick and Rare Champagne both have
their own
Instagram.
Sites and websites.
Yeah, site and website, definitely.
Because if you go to the website, they're pretty rich, and they also have the social media handles too.
And you will find all the details also regarding the wine and all the tasting notes and all the composition for each single blend of both Piper and Rare. So
yeah, I mean,
everything is available.
I spent some time on it, and they're nice sites, very informative. Gives you a good historical background of everything. All right, I want to thank our guest, Emilien Boutillat. Did I get that right?
Boutillat, yes.
Boutillat. Doesn't matter. I'm out of here in 2 minutes. No, thank you. To Emilien Boutillat. Thank you to our engineer, Armin, Willie Soul for our original theme music, and everyone at the Heritage Radio Network. I'm Sam Ben-Ruby, and you just got this week's wine list. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org/subscribe.